Hi, welcome to SGR Sports Picks. I'm Peter Loshak. It's week 11 in college football. We are talking with Steve from collegefootballwinning.com. We're in the heart of the end of the college football season, and we're going to cover a very interesting game right now, the Colorado-Arizona game. And, of course, Colorado was the Washington State of the Pac-12 this year, covering game in and game out. Last week, they got their first ATS loss. It was, again, a pretty nice win, a 10-point home win over UCLA, but the market started to catch up. They were in a 13.5-point favorite there, so they got their first ATS loss. Now they're at Arizona, and Arizona, of course, has been absolutely decimated by injuries. They've only covered one spread the entire year, so obviously Colorado's a huge road favorite here, and we're going to get Steve's take on where betting value might lie. Steve, how's college football going for you so far?
Well, it's going pretty well, Peter, because our formula, is now underway. And you heard for weeks at the beginning of the year that, we have to wait until our numbers align. So now that we've got our formula in full force, that formula, the lifetime of this company, including this year, is beating the spread at a rate of 59.63%, 528 formula betting recommendations over the lifetime of the formula.
That's awesome, Steve. All right, so let's get your take on Colorado at Arizona. Then we'll hear a little bit more about your website, collegefootballwinning.com. Steve, obviously, Colorado is they're a 15.5 or 16-point road favorite right now, and it doesn't take an ATS juggernaut to look like a good bet against Arizona. Arizona's only covered one spread this year, totally banged up on both sides of the ball. Is Colorado a no-brainer play here for an ATS bounce back?
For what it's worth, Peter, and it's definitely not worth arguing about, but I've got them covering two spreads. Arizona covering two spreads today, but not a big difference. Any way you look at it, they have been underperforming. So whether it's one or two games they've covered, it's somewhat incidental here. Colorado, they're ranked 12th now in the latest college football playoff rankings. That's their highest ever college football playoff rank. They're atop the Pac-12 South, another first for Colorado. Meanwhile, you set it up well, Peter. Lowly Arizona, they're 2-7 straight up, and they're 0-6 straight up in the Pac-12. They're last in the Pac-12. They're not going to go to a bowl game for the first time under Rich Rod, their head coach. Last week, just to cap off their misery, Arizona lost 69-7 to Washington State. So we have two teams occupying two really diametrically opposed positions in our perception, right? One at the top of their game, one at the bottom of their game. So let's examine just for a moment, let's look back to sort of the capper of the low point of Rich Rod's, maybe his entire coaching career last week, 69-7, losing to Washington State. That was Arizona's worst loss since 1949. So you want to talk about a low point for Arizona, they're at a low point. Now, it's an overused term, Peter, so I don't like to use it, but I think it's somewhat appropriate here. Arizona met with the perfect storm for them last week. So many, you've already said so many injuries. There's so many running back injuries, specifically the running back, that they're starting a wide receiver. They're starting a wide receiver at running back. They started a converted defensive back at wide receiver. They're playing with two injured quarterbacks and a true freshman at quarterback. All three of them saw playing time. They were somewhat suddenly without their most experienced offensive lineman, their right guard. His replacement in that game last week was the illegal man downfield who was responsible for taking an Arizona touchdown off the board. I could go on and on about this perfect storm for Arizona last week, how it was just the elements aligned perfectly for them to be at an absolute low. Arizona was outgained 286 to 614 in total offense. Now that is a lot, and there's no doubt this was an absolute shellacking. But if you used standard college football metrics here, yardage like that should equate to a score of about 44-20. Still, a decisive victory, but 44-20 sounds a lot different than 69-7. And again, I think this would occupy a different place in our minds, in our perception, if the score had been 44-20. So basically what I'm saying here, the conclusion I'm drawing from last week's perfect storm for Arizona, the box score makes a terrible loss, even a little bit worse than it actually was. And too many recreational bettors, anyway, for college football make decisions, at least in part, on box scores. So that box score was as horrific as it could possibly be for Arizona. Now, much of what was out of sorts for Arizona last week will not be the case versus Colorado this week. It appears that their starting quarterback, Anu Solomon, is healthy now, and he hasn't been healthy since week 1 this season. That wide receiver turned running back, Samaje Grant, he's now showing signs of proficiency at the running back position now that he's had a few starts. And by the way, he did play that position in high school, and he's a tremendous athlete anyway. That most experienced offensive lineman that I talked about, the right guard, who was somewhat suddenly missing last week, he is supposed to be back this week. Let's talk about turnovers. I like to talk about turnovers for one very good reason. It won't surprise you to learn that Arizona is minus 14 in turnover margin over the past 6 games. Their 6-game losing streak, Peter, minus 14. That's horrible. Colorado on the season, on the other hand, they're plus 7. That's good enough to rank 16th against FBS competition. Colorado has scored, for their part, the last 2 weeks, their last 2 games, just 2 offensive touchdowns. Just 2. Relying on turnovers, you hear me say this a lot, relying on turnovers for points is real gambling. Since, as I've said for years with you in these videos, Peter, turnovers are the most random, which is to say unpredictable, of the most impactful college football statistics. So if you're relying on Arizona to continue that horrible turnover margin and Colorado to continue that amazing turnover margin, you are really relying on something tremendously unpredictable. The home-away performance disparity applies to both schools here in this case, and I think it's pronounced. Colorado scores 45.7% more points at home than they do away this season. Colorado's defense allows 82.3% more yards per play away than they do at home. Arizona, they score 48.57% more points at home than they do away. Their passing defense, in particular, is decidedly better at home. Passing yards per attempt is 26.5% worse when they're away versus at home. Their passing defense averages 1.2 interceptions per game at home, and they've had no interceptions in away games this season. Their opponent's completion percentage is just 58.6% in home games. It's good, not great, compared to 68.7% away, which is great. So again, I can go on and on about this disparity here, but basically in sum, Peter, what I believe we're looking at, viewing the college football betting market for what it is. It's a financial market. In financial terms, if you were to buy Colorado right now, you'd be buying high. You'd be paying a premium to get Colorado. But if you bought Arizona, especially because of last week, you'd get Arizona at a discount. And of course, we want to buy low, sell high. So my conclusion as of right now, Peter, and it could change between now and kickoff, I like the Arizona side, but I want to say something to people watching this video. I think people want to consider waiting to bet this one. Why? Because more than 80% of the public betting is coming in on Colorado, which is not a surprise when I talked about the perceptions of each team. So by waiting, we might be able to get Arizona going all the way up to plus 17. So I like the Arizona side, and my recommendation is to wait on this until you can get Arizona. I think we can get them at plus 17 somewhere between now and we're shooting this in kickoff.
All right, awesome analysis, Steve. Chris books are already up to 16 right now. Arizona plus 16 is Steve's recommended play, an even stronger recommendation to wait to see if you can get a better number closer to kickoff because, I'm sure that this line it appears to be headed up and might be headed up significantly higher. Steve from collegefootballwinning.com. Tell us what you do at collegefootballwinning.com.
At collegefootballwinning.com, all we do is college football betting analysis all year round. We're a company founded on making betting recommendations using sets of algorithms. And we call those algorithmic betting recommendations our formula. I mentioned this before. The lifetime of the formula is 59.63% against the spread. That's more than 500 betting recommendations, 528 to be exact. If you come to collegefootballwinning.com right now, you can still get the rest of our season with a 100% money-back guarantee that if you don't profit on the season, which is to say you don't do better than 52.38% on the season with us, we'll refund the money you paid to us, 100% of what you paid to us. You'll get that back if you opt for the 100% money-back guarantee. And as it is right now, you can go to collegefootballwinning.com, put in coupon code SBR10, It's SPR10, and get 10% off of any membership that we're currently offering.
All right, Steve. Thanks so much. Talk to you again very soon.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SPR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.